Hey, I'm Chris. I live in Las Vegas and I'm a gearhead. It's usually how I start my videos. I do have another channel where rate I rate audio gear, but this video is a little different. Hello, my name is Chris and this is my deconstruction story. So 30 years ago, I became a born again Christian, and a lot has happened after that. And I guess I just wanted to tell my story, why my faith deconstructed, and why I no longer consider myself a born again Christian. I guess I should start at the beginning. I grew up in a Judeo-Christian home in the 1980s, and my mother's family is Catholic and my father's family is Protestant. So I grew up with the idea of the Ten Commandments, and we went to Sunday school. I heard all those groovy Sunday school stories about the Ark and the flood and Adam and Eve and all those things that they teach you in Sunday school. So when we got older, we were sent to church as children, but when we got older, when we became teenagers, we were allowed to think for ourselves. We were allowed to decide if we wanted to go to church or not. So we stopped going to church until the late 90s. I believe I was turning into a teenager, and it was my freshman year in high school. Now, in high school, across the street from my high school, there was a 7-Eleven where all the cool kids like smoked cigarettes. And there was this lady who would come out like every day and hand out those little Christian tracts. Her name was Andrea Shake. And she was really, really sweet, heart as big as the moon, blonde hair, blue eyes, honey of a figure. The chick used to be a cocktail waitress. And then she just fell in love with Jesus, and it changed everything. So something in her made her want to go out and share this message with everybody. Now, I had already grown up with the story of Jesus and the cross and all of that. This was in no way a conversion. But seeing the heart of this lady made me want to follow her and go to her church. The deal is, like, she would come and hang out with all the stoners, and there'd be like a pile of like all these religious tracts on the ground because people would take them and just throw them away right in front of her. And the chick was unmoved. She still believed in her faith so much that she didn't care. So I was interested in that alone. So me and my brother, we started going to her church, and there was a youth group. It was really, really nice. We were teenagers. We weren't the most social people, so it was kind of groovy to go to a church and hang out with other kids who had like-minded ideas. And it was all under the idea that this is a good thing. So we started going to this church. I'm going to call it Meadows. I'm not going to say the full name of the church. And when I name all of these people who go to this church, I really hope they understand if they ever see this. This is in no way an attack of that church or the people who went to that church or who currently go to that church. As far as I know, none of the people who went to this church 30 years ago are still going to this church now. And their teachings are probably completely different than they were 30 years ago. So it's freshman high school. I'm going to this church. It's a non-denominational Christian church. They just did sermons on Sunday, youth group on Wednesdays. It was pretty cool until the church had a breakup. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a church and they've had a breakup. It can get really messy. Lots of rumors, lots of hateful things. But basically, the church broke up. So that was my first experience with church. I still continue to go to this church. But the thing was, apparently, after the break of the church, they weren't making very much money. Maybe they couldn't pay their bills. So this church kind of signed up to join the Pentecostal Church, all right? So Meadows went from non-denominational to all-out, like, evangelical Pentecostal. So that means within a small 6-month period, they went from like just teaching normal sermons to everybody pray in tongues. We're going to touch everybody. We're going to heal them. We're going to talk about dreams that we've had that God's telling us. A lot of people had encounters with angels, by the way. So it went from a nice charismatic church to straight out full tongues, straight out we're going to do faith healing. So that transition was really, really difficult, especially when when you came from such a background of being charismatic. one thing I have with Evangelical Church is that a lot of it is really, really outlandish. They have their faith, but they don't want to depend on any kind of scientific knowledge. That really breaks my heart. I am not speaking from a script. I'm actually only have bullet points because I wanted to speak from my heart and everything that made me want to leave Christianity. So I went to this church for a good 10 years. I believe I got saved when I was in 1992. I was a Christian at the time of DC Talk and John Gibson and Carmen and We Are Not Ashamed, all of that stuff. And I went to all those youth Christian conferences, all of those things like Josh McDowell. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy, or Focus on the Family. That was really, really big in the 90s. All of this stuff, all of this purity culture was pushed on us in the Christian church. And honestly, I can't say it did me any benefit whatsoever. A lot of things that I went through in that church really broke my heart. And I still haven't recovered from. And this was like 30 years ago. So after they had embraced this whole evangelical Pentecostal thing, everybody's praying in tongues, everybody is talking about dreams, everybody's talking about these angels that they keep meeting. By the way, had I known what I know now, I probably would have just said that an angel showed up to my house and gave me like new career plans, because dude, that would have saved me a lot of heartache. So strange things would happen in this church. Not the tongues, not all of that stuff, but things that were totally normal hypocrisy. So the Bible is an ancient book. It's old. Over 66 writers, compiled over several thousand years, several hundred years. I believe the first 5 books of the Bible were written in 500 BC under Babylonian rule by rabbinical priests. There's a lot of promises that evangelicals tell you about the Bible. They try to tell you that the Bible aligns with history. There's a lot of gaslighting in the Evangelical Church. The Bible doesn't align with history. They try to tell you that it's the infallible Word of God. It's not the infallible Word of God. There's contradictions up and down through the Bible. There's lots of, the New Testament doesn't even agree with itself. If you want to say the Old Testament and the New Testament are against each other, they kind of am. At best, the Old Testament is an origin story for the Hebrew people. When you're a fledgling nation and you don't have a lot of history, that's what you do. You write one to give inspiration to your nation, and that's exactly what the Old Testament was. As far as the New Testament, well, this new thing, Christianity, showed up, and after the first century of people, some Jewish aristocrats, Greek writing Jewish aristocrats wrote the 4 Gospels, maybe through oral stories that they heard about Jesus, but they weren't eyewitnesses. The writers of the Gospels were not eyewitnesses. And as far as Paul's letters, he never met Jesus. He claimed to meet a resurrected Jesus on the road to Damascus, but the dude never met the living Jesus. Now, if you want to believe in the miracles of the Bible, that's just fine. All of that is very subjective. If you can't look outside of yourself and analyze these things with a logical deductive reasoning, then it's not going to do you much good. And I have to say that even going to Christian church, I've had a lot of spiritual experiences, but I have to look back and really analyze, did I really have those experiences, or was it some kind of hypnotic spell I was under being in the presence of all those people? A lot of things happen in church. A lot of things happened at that church. If Christianity was true, and if it could stand on its own, then it should be able to stand up under scrutiny. There's many times at this Christian church Meadows where they would use deception, and they would use theatrics, and they would use drama to push the gospel. And you know what? A lot of Christians believe, no matter how you get people into the kingdom, it's okay. But if you have to use lies and the deception to get them there, dude, maybe your religion doesn't stand up under scrutiny. So one of the deaconesses one day decided to dress up like a homeless person and sit in the back of the church and let everyone ignore her, just so at the end of the sermon she can get up and like take all this credit. This is how you treat homeless people. You guys aren't living up to the Bible. That was one thing. That was cute. Yeah, you could learn from that. That you could learn from that lesson. It was adorable. But was it genuine? Was it real? No, it was kind of theatrical bullshit. Another episode is one Christmas sermon. This is such bullshit. One Christmas sermon, they claimed that a baby was left in the front of the the front doors of the church. And they brought this baby in this little baby carriage up to the front of the stage during the ceremony, and they're like, "Oh my God, somebody left this baby in front of the church at our Christmas sermon. Wow, look at the symbology of this, right?" And everybody was crying, and everybody was praising Jesus, and everybody was so happy and sad at the same time. Until at the very end of the sermon, dude was like, "No, this isn't anybody's baby. This is somebody's baby from the church. We just wanted to make you feel these feelings so you knew the abandonment that Jesus maybe had felt as a baby." Are you fucking kidding me? So we're going to put abandoned babies in front of churches, and we're going to say that they're abandoned just to push the sermon. Are you fucking kidding me? Me and one of my friends totally just mobbed out of that sermon. It was such bullshit. There was another episode, many episodes, but when I was 21, I'd got myself in legal trouble. Basically, I had done breaking and entering, and I'd done grand theft. I stole a car. So I stopped going to church. I thought like, hey, this is it. I'm just a hood. Not deserving of any of this. I stopped going to church, dude. And my pastor, he found me. He saw that I was working at a movie theater, and I confessed. Yeah, I'm an asshole. I'm a jerk. And I still feel really awful about that whole time. I really hated myself. And he said it was okay, and that I was forgiven, and I could come back to church. And more than anything, that made me understand it, and that's the forgiveness of Christ. That's the way Christians should be, and how they should treat each other. And believe it or not, I'm still really thankful for that, and that really warmed my heart. But at the same time, it makes me think, what other crimes were being confessed in that church that were just forgiven? When I was in the youth group, several of the kids in our youth group knew that one of the kids was getting beat by their stepfather. And you know what? In retrospect, I would have reported it. But back then, who's to say that this dude just didn't confess to it to his pastor and was forgiven? There was another instance where a young lady in our church had died. Basically, she was mountain climbing with her husband, and people really didn't know this. They were having marital problems, and she fell off of the mountain and died. And there was a lot of there's a lot of suspect. We'll never know what happened on that mountain, dude. But what if this dude confessed to pushing this chick off the mountain and he was forgiven? I'll never know what crimes were forgiven in this church. That will always bug me to this day, because I cried like a baby at that girl's funeral while everybody was praising Jesus and happy she's going home. And I'm like, well, this chick might have been pushed off the fucking mountain, and you guys are so happy that she's going to see Jesus. That really, really hurt. Now, I did have a background in that church. I did a lot of volunteer work after I got saved, because that's what you do when you're a born-again Christian. Your life is on fire, your heart is warm on fire, you jump into the Bible, and I'm no slouch when it comes to the Bible. I used to think I was really, really good researcher. I'd have my Greek and Hebrew concordance. I could scribe in Hebrew, which is ridiculous. Um, there's no reason that a middle-aged man in America should know how to scribe in like a, I don't know, several thousand-year-old like language. It's completely ridiculous like skill for me to have. But yeah, I could scribe in Hebrew. I mean, I don't know. It's not like I didn't believe in the Bible. The thing was, I knew, even as a teenager, that I was gay. And I thought that what I was being sold in church could fix it. I thought that becoming a born-again Christian could heal something that honestly was nothing wrong with me. There was never anything wrong with me. So I became a worship leader. I joined the worship team. I worked with people in the church side by side for like 10 years, hiding the fact that I was a gay man. And I dated women, and it didn't make me happy. And I knew that if I had gotten married and had kids, that I would cheat on the girl. So like I told the girl who I was going to marry that like this couldn't happen. And that kind of ended that. And it also ended my career as a worship leader because, I don't know, God just doesn't like gay, right? What really hurts me with the hypocrisy of the Evangelical Church is like a lot of people at that church, dude, they were kind of promoting themselves. They were really promoting themselves. I'll really never know if the pastor of the church really believed in what he believed in, or if he was just making his 50, 60K a year, man. And I'll be honest, I'm really, really happy that Pastor Ted is no longer a pastor. He later became a fireman. And honestly, I believe becoming a fireman and giving first aid and, you know, putting out blazes is just kind of more constructive to society than being a spiritual like counselor. What really bothers me with the Evangelical Church is like their view on homosexuality. You know what, it's really, really convenient to pick and choose, you know, what you want to believe in the Bible, which is a lot of what American Christians are doing. And if you listen to Christians from around the world, they're horrified. They're horrified by what what American Christians are doing or how American Christians do it. They see it and they're disgusted. Yeah, so the hypocrisy in the church really bothered me. The worship leader that I mentored under, wow, he's kind of a jokester, he's kind of a trickster, and he's one of those people in life, like they tell jokes to get through that difficult moment or that awkward moment. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, but his jokes never ended, and they weren't very tasteful either. I can't tell you how many racist jokes I heard at that church. I can't tell you how many homophobic, racist jokes that dude told. And I laughed. I laughed at all of them because it was awkward and it hurt. And I feel bad that I'm an adult now that I would tell him he was full of shit and to shut the fuck up. But I'm just not in that place anymore. Again, I didn't like the gossip in church. There were so many people who would knock you down if they didn't like where you were. When I became a worship leader, there were a lot of people against it. And apparently there was a lot of gossip about me because people wanted that position and thought that they were better and that they deserved it. And at the very end, yeah, they were better. They did get my position as a worship leader. But honestly, yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. I don't like the idea of the purity culture that was taught, that you have to be a certain way to be loved. I don't like the idea that evangelicals believe that all people are sinners and that need redemption. Honestly, I don't think that's true. And there's no other religion on the planet that believes that. There is right and wrong, and there's redemption from things that we've done. But honestly, as far as being separated from the divine, all religions basically say that if you reach out to God, if you talk, if you try, he will answer, or she, or what have you. The shame, all the shame that came with Christianity. Oh my God, I'm so happy that's gone. Even though Christianity is still living rent-free in my head, I have to tell myself with my logical mind that, you know what, that's not you anymore, and you're not bound under that anymore. As many things that I feel that I may have lost under Christianity, there's so many things I've gained. I can choose. So the main reasons I even made this video is because I've been struggling with this deconstruction for several years now, and I've given it a lot of thought. In no way am I rejecting Christianity or any religion whatsoever, and in no way do I hate those people. Those were the best times of my life when I lived at that church and I worked at that church, and I really, really miss them. But at the same time, as I've seen things in my adult life that tell me that that world isn't for me and that it will never benefit me. It bugs me, the stuff that I see in the news, everything that the evangelicals have done in the last, 5 years that have shown me that, yeah, I've made the right decision to no longer be an evangelical Christian. The embrace of Donald Trump. Really? Of all the people? Now, I grew up in a Republican home. Like, my dad was super duper Republican. Like, even as a child, I had the idea that that Donald Trump dude was not a good guy. I have no idea why the evangelicals jumped on his boat. The rejection of science, man. When we're going through hard times in life, that's when we're really put to the test, and that's when you really see what kind of character you truly have. So, to me, when COVID-19 hit, and I saw how people treated each other, and how polarizing it was, I mean, let's throw away the politics of it, dude. It's a real disease that was flying around killing people, and still is. People of faith, they sure as hell didn't care about your safety. They didn't care about the science. They just really wanted to go to church and not wear masks no matter who got sick. I can't tell you how disgusting and how selfish that is and how arrogant it is. I feel really bad that when I went to that church, Meadows, there was not a lot of emphasis on science. There was not a lot of emphasis on history. And I'll tell you this much about your pastor in your church. His job is not to teach you history. His job is not to teach you comparative religion. His job is to teach you that religion alone. I don't think people understand how churches work. I've worked for corporations. I've worked for nonprofits. So when you work in that kind of atmosphere, there's an executive director and there's a board of directors. And if the board of directors don't like anything that the executive director is doing, he's out of there. He's fired, man. So your pastor, he don't work for you. He works for the elders. They're his executive directors. The elders are basically like the rich white people who like own the church, basically. Usually there's 12, 13. It's a whole bunch of like rich white guys who basically fund the church. That's the basic premise of every church. I know it sounds like really like harsh of me to say, but you tell me. You go to your church. You tell me how many elders you have and tell me how much money they all make. They're funding the church. They're paying the pastor. So your pastor is not going to teach you history. He's not going to teach the reality of the Bible and its origins. Most pastors who went to divinity school, who became ordained, who studied theology, they know that the four Gospels were written in the later half of the first century and the first half of the second century by non-eyewitnesses. This is a fact. They know, your pastor knows, that the first 5 books of the Bible were not written by Moses. They were most likely written by rabbinical priests under Babylonian rule in 500 BC. They know this. They're not going to advertise this in church. They're going to say that the Bible is the infallible Word of God, which it is not. It's been translated over and over again. There's multiple writers. The writers don't agree with each other. And the thing is, educated Christians know this. That's the only reason they even had to come up with the idea of apologetics, because they know there's holes in their religion and they needed to come up with an argument against it. But the thing is, the holes exist. The holes exist, and no matter how much faith you want to throw into the holes will still be there. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus didn't happen. Most likely there was a historical Jesus, but I've got big questions to whether or not the Gospels are historical, like, whatsoever. If the Gospel stories even line up with the historical Jesus. It could very well be that he was just an apocalyptic teacher of his time, and the religious right of his time didn't like him and got rid of him. As simple as that. And then oral stories later made him into a god. These things happened. This was ancient Rome. Humans becoming gods was not far out back then. All the Caesars were God's son back then. Deus Filio, I believe. Filio Deus. Mental health. The church doesn't care about mental health. I knew so many Christians who were having problems with depression and were diagnosed and were given like medication, and they felt that they couldn't take that medication, that it was like a affront to their faith. Like all they needed was Jesus, and the medication wasn't going to help them. Or look at all the Christian religions who feel that they don't need to go to the doctor because of faith healing. And that's what really bugs me with faith healing, is that there's real people, real sick people who need help. And I've worked in the medical field. Go to the damn doctor. Listen to your doctor. Science is not your enemy. Science is trying to keep your ass alive. And honestly, modern day science is a freaking miracle in comparison to the healing arts of 2,000 years ago. So if you want to believe in miracles, modern day science is a miracle. Accept it. Dear Lord. Donald Trump, accepting Donald Trump. COVID-19, dear Lord. The selfishness that was just brought out of people when a pandemic hit. If those hard times really do test who you truly are, your integrity, then, dude, American Christians really failed this test, dude. It really kills me how a lot of Christians believe that they're persecuted, especially in the United States. Statistically, I think I'd still about 50% of Americans identify as Christian. I really don't understand how you could feel like you're being put down upon when like half of the nation is Christian, and you tend to believe that America was built on Christianity. Makes zero sense. Zero sense. This Christian persecution complex is ridiculous. For about 2,000 years, the Christians have been running the game. 2,000 years, the Christians have been running the game on planet Earth. What the hell is your problem? January 6th and Christian nationalism. Now, this is another story about Meadows that has to do with Christian nationalism and angels, apparently. Okay, January 6th showed that you could use religion and you could use politics and you could blend them to cause chaos. And a lot of the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, dude, they're Christian nationalists, dude. They're born-again Christians, dude. The people who stormed the speaker's house, the people who stormed the house, they prayed evangelical prayers on the house after they broke in, dude. How much more do you need? But what the funny thing about Meadows is they were guilty of mixing religion and politics just as much as anybody else. There was a veterinarian doctor in our church, and one day he claimed that an angel showed up to him and gave him a nice career change. Basically, he claimed an angel showed up and told him to run for Congress. Okay? So, Cliff Notes version, dude runs. I used to like watch this dude's like kids in like Sunday school. So like, I really love these people in this family. So I'm not gonna hate on them. But you could look it up for yourself. You could look up Congressman Nevada sex scandal. So, dude becomes a congressman. And he's actually a super nice congressman. He started a prayer group in Congress. He brought a lot of Christian values, right-wing Christian values to Congress. So he ran on that. But the thing was, I want to know if the angel really showed up to him and told him to do this, primo career move. Did the angel also tell him to shtup his assistant and try to pay off the assistant's husband to save his career? Because that's exactly what happened. The Mr. Christian Congressman banged out his female assistant, and instead of it to try to keep it out of the papers, he wanted to pay off her husband to keep his career. Now, apparently it all fell apart, obviously. You could look it all up. Like, you could Google it. But, dude, I felt so bad because I knew that family. And I was like, damn, he's only a man. He's only human. But it ruined his career, dude. It's just hypocrisy. It was all a game. Did an angel really show up to him, or was he just hungry for power? And I think the answer is clear. So I finally left that church in my early 20s. And what I did afterwards is I thought that if Christianity wasn't for me, if praying the gay away wasn't working, then maybe this Christianity thing wasn't everything that they had said it was. Now, this was like 20 years ago. Since then, I came out as gay. I've worked in nonprofits. I've worked at corporations, and I've been pretty well-rounded. After I left that church in my 20s, I did a lot of soul searching. I hung out with... I've gone to Buddhist temples and chanted in Buddhist temples. And I've gone ghost hunting with paranormal investigators. And I've danced in circles with pagans and drank their wine and eaten their cake and laughed. Oh my gosh, witches are so funny. Laughed my butt off in those circles. And honestly, all of those experiences have taught me that it's not about any one religion. It's about human beings coming together and having fellowship. And when it comes to religion, if the fellowship you have with each other, if that heals you and that makes you feel better, then it is worth it. And this is in no way an attack on Christianity. If you feel that all your needs are being met in Christian church and that you're in the right place, by all means, keep going there. But if you're LGBT and you feel like you're being beat up at your church and you feel that you're in a relationship that isn't healthy and that doesn't, want what's best for you or have your well-being at heart, then by all means, if you're in an abusive relationship, leave it. People are going to say that, you left Christianity because you wanted to be gay. Or you left Christianity because you maybe found out a little bit too much about history and science and you've lost your faith because you believe in science. Now, I still believe in the supernatural, or at least I'm open to the idea of the supernatural. I've had many supernatural experiences in my life, but I've got to look at them objectively and not subjectively and come to conclusions. And as far as me wanting to run out and live a sinful life, honestly, I couldn't tell you how much more fulfilled my life has been without Christianity. I'm happy, I'm married, and surrounded by musical instruments and my art, all the things that I truly love. Christianity really did take from me a little bit more than it gave. And I can't tell you the things I sacrificed, on that altar. I sacrificed a promising education and career to Christianity. My high school choir, we sang backup for Michael Jackson in the 90s But because of my Christian ideals, I refused to sing backup for Michael Jackson. And honestly, there was no Netflix back then. There was a lot of rumors that Michael Jackson was up to nefarious things. There was no Netflix documentaries back then to tell us that it was a whole bunch of greedy parents coaxing their kids to get a lot of money out of Michael Jackson. Back then, it was just a scandal splashed on all the pages of the tabloids. So when Michael Jackson was doing a gig in Vegas with his brothers, and my choir got to sing backup for them, I stepped out of it. I refused to do it. Now tell me, if I wasn't a real Christian, would I have even done that? Would I have sacrificed an education for Christianity if I didn't really truly believe? I don't know. Would I have sacrificed my marriage that I was, the girl I was going to marry? Not do that if I didn't believe? All I got to say is, if you're in a relationship, even a relationship with Jesus, and it's hurting you, and it's an abusive relationship, the smart thing to do is get out of it. Christianity can't offer me anything but judgment and damnation. And if you're going to say the Christians that you met in your past, Chris, aren't real Christians, well, that's a little bit too convenient, isn't it? Because whenever anybody in the Christian church does something outside of the hive mind, they're immediately brushed off as they were never Christian. That's ridiculous. And that's, it's typical. But it's ridiculous, and it's just not true. I don't know. I've seen a lot of deconstruction stories, and I hope that my story would encourage anybody who's LGBT to make their own way in life, and to surround yourself with people who want you to be better, and who want you to be healthy, and who want you to be your best self. Not anybody who wants to control you or change you, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. There's nothing in you that needs to be redeemed. Maybe you need to work on yourself. Maybe you have problems, of course, that's a human thing. None of us are perfect, but there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. And I don't think religion could fix it anyway. I think you need to find your own self and work through it. That's what life is. We're given problems, and we have to face them. And I've tried to run away from my problems a million times. I really did not want to do this video. But I guess I just had to get it out of me to say that I'm a better man for leaving Christianity. And I don't know. Will I be back? I used to work in retirement homes. I've seen old people come to Jesus who were never into Jesus their entire lives. It's probably because they're on the precipice of death. Am I going to be one of those old people who comes back to the faith? Maybe if I get dementia. Because I've seen people in the old person's home where they get lost. They get sucked back into a time that was long before. So yeah, it's possible. It's possible. But for now, I'm just going to be a happy-go-lucky person and try my best every day. Be happy, be healthy, be safe out there, and look after one another. Hugs, health, happiness from Las Vegas.